The Mayor and City Council welcome you to the Peoria City Council meeting. As a courtesy to others, please silence all phones. If you would like to address an issue that is on the agenda, or if you would like to speak to the Council regarding a non-agenda item, please complete a speaker request form, which can be found in the front lobby of the Peoria City Council chambers or in the tray to the left of the speaker's podium. Please place the completed speaker request form in the second tray to the left of the speaker's podium labeled Request to Speak. All speakers will have 3 minutes to complete their comments. A countdown clock is easily visible on the left side of the wall behind the City Council dais. Only items listed on the agenda may be addressed by the Council. Since items presented as part of a speaker's request have not been listed on the agenda, and due to the requirements of open meeting laws, the Council will be unable to respond to items presented as part of the speaker's request. However, please be aware that your comments will be noted. The speaker's name will be called to speak at the appropriate time, in the order that the forms were received. Thank you for your interest and participation in the Peoria City Council meeting.
Peoria City Council meeting will now come to order. Please rise for a moment of quiet reflection and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Hunt.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The clerk will please call the roll.
Mayor Carlett,
Here.
Vice Mayor Patena,
Here.
Councilmember Finn,
Here.
Councilmember Dunn,
Here.
Councilmember Hunt,
Here.
Councilmember Schaefer,
Present.
and Councilmember Edwards.
Here.
Good evening and welcome to the Peoria City Council meeting of May 17th, 2022. If anyone would like to address an issue that is on the agenda, or if you wish to speak regarding a non-agenda item, we have speaker request forms available, as you heard in our video. Please complete that form and return it to the clerk, and you will be called at the appropriate time. We're going to begin this evening with a series of Community Facilities District Board meetings. The first one is the Mystic at Lake Pleasant Heights Community Facilities District Board. The first item is the consent agenda. Board members, are there any items to be removed from consent? Seeing none, is there a motion on item 3C?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion is second. Please vote. And it passes unanimously. The next item is new business on the regular agenda for Mystic at Lake Pleasant Heights Community Facilities District. Item 4R is proposed fiscal year 2023 budget and tax levy for the Mystic at Lake Pleasant Heights Community Facilities District. Mr. Tyne?
Thank you, Mayor. And we have the board finance representative and chief financial officer for the city, Kevin Burke, will provide this presentation.
Mayor, Council. I'll be your host for the next 4 items, and so these are the budgets and the tax levy associated with each of the 4 community facilities districts in Peoria. The first one is Mystic at Lake Pleasant. This is one of our newer ones, formed in 2020. It's in the northwest portion of the city. It was formed for the purpose of financing El Mirage Road and some of the other utilities in that area. The proposed budget for FY23, and this is probably our most active CFD for the next year. We will actually have a pretty sizable bond issuance of about $5 million if all things go well in about April, May of next year. The debt service on that would be about $120,000 in FY23, and then we have $35,000 in operating expenses, contingencies, and others, about another $250,000 for a total budget of $5,407,500. The tax rate is the same tax rate as we've had the previous year, which is $2.65 per $100 in assessed valuation, and that generates an average of $795 on a $300,000 home. The notice will be published in the Peoria Times this Thursday, May 19th, and it's a notice calling for a public hearing and providing notice of adoption of a final budget and what the tax levy is. That meeting will be, the public hearing and that action will be on June 7th. So The recommended action for tonight is approval of Resolution MCFD 2022-01, which does those things, sets the proposed budget and calls for the public hearing. Any questions?
Thank you. And just to clarify, for the purpose of, all these numerous CFDs and budgeting this year, these tax rates are paid for by the residents within that district and only those residents.
Yes, ma'am, that's exactly right. And it was voted on, it's a tax rate that was voted on by the folks of that CFD.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions or comments? No, seeing none, can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept or adopt.
All right, we have a motion and a second on 4R. Please vote. It passes unanimously. All right, next we're going to move on to the consent agenda for Vistancia North Community Facilities District Board. And the first item is the consent agenda, item 5C. Is there a motion on consent? We have a motion and a second. Please vote. 5C passes unanimously. And now we will move on to the regular agenda and new business for Vistancia North Community Facilities District. And item 6R is proposed fiscal year 2023 budget and tax levy for Vistancia North Community Facilities District.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. Yes, this is Vistancia North, also in the Northwest, and also a very new community facility district formed in 2020 to finance it, in part the Jomax treatment plant and some other utility structures. This one is a little bit unique in that this is a subset of the Vistancia CFD. So it actually has two layers, Vistancia and Vistancia North, in this particular area. The Vistancia North budget is still, it's still in its infancy, still in development. So this $75,000 as far as a bond issuance is mainly just to keep it on the tax roll so that people know this exists and that will show up each year. This is essentially a bond issuance that is bought by the developer and then repaid. Just to make that happen. So the debt service is about 21 grand, the operating expenses another 30,000, and then contingencies another, the bulk of the budget with 257,500 for a total budget of $383,500. The tax rate, again, keep in mind this is an overlay, just Vistancia North, the tax rate is 55 cents per $100 in assessed valuation, but that lays on top of the Vistancia one, which is another 210, and you'll see that in the next CFD. For this particular item, again, the notice of a public hearing and final budget on tax or proposed budget and tax will be published in the May 19th Peoria Times, and then we will have our public hearing at the June 7th meeting.
Good, thank you. Any questions or discussion? All right, do we have a motion on item 6R?
So move on 6R.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And it passes unanimously. All right, and now we will move on to consent for Vistancia Community Facilities District Board. And the consent item is 7C. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Passes unanimously. Now the next item on the regular agenda, new business for Vistancia Community Facilities District Board, is proposed fiscal year 2023 budget and tax levy for Vistancia Community Facilities District.
Great. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is actually our oldest CFD, formed in 2002, again financing the Jomax treatment plant and some other major utility infrastructure. You can see in this one where Vistancia North is kind of just that to the north and set within this same CFD. In this particular one, because they are near the end of the CFD financing period, we are strictly doing debt service. There's no new issuances. We're just paying the debt that's already been issued. In FY23, the debt service will be $4,230,000 with operating expenses of 30 and another contingency of 257,500 for a total budget of $4,517,825. The proposed tax rate is the same tax rate that it's always been, which is $2.10 per $100 in valuation. Excuse me. and an estimated average cost of $630 on a $300,000 home. So this is, yes, okay, and then this one, same thing. The notice of proposed budget and tax levy, as well as the public hearing, will be published in the Peoria Times on May 19th, with the actual hearing and action to occur on June 7th.
Thank you. Any discussion? Personally, I am a big fan of this, allowing the older CFD to run its course while starting the new one, the north one, as its own, which allows this to be paid off sooner, and it's a great benefit for the residents there. It's a great deal. So do we have a motion on item 8R?
So moved on 8R.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please vote. And that passes unanimously. And now we will move on to the consent agenda for Vistancia West Community Facilities District Board meeting. And item 9C is the consent agenda. Is there a motion on consent?
Move to approve. Second.
All right, just for information, consent is the minutes from the previous meetings in all cases. Please vote. And it passes unanimously. And the next item is new business on the regular agenda for Vistancia West Community Facilities District. And that is 10R, proposed fiscal year 2023 budget and tax levy for Vistancia West Community Facilities District.
Very good, thank you, Mayor and Councilmember. Vistancia West is kind of the middle child of the CFDs. This was formed in 2014. Again, some financing of an arterial road as well as some utility infrastructure. This one is also just in the process of paying their debt service. So no new debt issuances, just $650,000 in debt service, some operating expenses and contingency for a total budget of $937,500 and a proposed tax rate of $2.10 per hundred, which was the voted upon rate and generates the $630 per $300,000 house.
The middle child, huh?
The middle child, sure.
I like middle children, but to be one. All right, is any discussion? No, is there a motion on item 10R?
So moved on 10R.
And a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, please vote. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. I know we went through those very fast and they take an awful lot of work to conceive, so we appreciate that. And we will now move on to a series of presentations. And the first one is certificates of appointment to newly appointed board and commission members. And I'd like to call your attention to the screen for a short video about our boards and commissions.
Is proud to have 21 different boards and commissions, ranging from arts and culture to economic development to planning and zoning. They're made up of residents and business leaders who bring a wealth of personal and professional experience and who generously volunteer their time, energy, and wisdom to our community. These members meet on a regular basis, deliberating and collaborating on various projects and issues of importance for the benefit of all Peoria residents. In the past few years, they have had a direct role in influencing meaningful projects like the Veterans Memorial expansion, multiple public art installations, accessible park amenities, and our Youth Advisory Board even collaborated with the State Attorney General's office to team up in the fight against tobacco sales to minors. As we welcome new volunteers into this exceptional group of people, I want you to know how much we appreciate your willingness to share your time and expertise with our city. On behalf of the City of Peoria and the Peoria City Council, I want to express our gratitude and appreciation. Your service makes a difference. It's an honor to have you working alongside us as we shape our finest future.
And I would like to introduce Councilmember Mike Finn. He is the chairperson of the Council Subcommittee for Boards and Commissions. He's going to be passing out some awards.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to welcome the new members of the boards and commissions. When I call your name, please come forward for your plaque and collector's edition photo with Councilmember Finn. So we will start with Harmony Fisher on the Youth Advisory Board. Is Harmony here?
All right.
Okay, next we have Manya Tawari. Next, we have Ronette Venturi. Next is Tanya Vade. I'm sorry I didn't mention it. These are all for the Youth Advisory Board. Probably should have said that in the beginning. Next is Hershneet Chadha. Next is Raya Ravindran. And last but not least is Isabel Snyder.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate your service. All right, the next presentation is partnership recognition, and for this I will pass it over to our city manager, Jeff Tyne.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I know kind of a vague topic that we bring out partnership recognition, but this is actually a very important discussion about how we as a community get together in times of emergency events. At such times of emergencies, it's critical to activate all areas and all aspects of a community, the private sector, not-for-profits, our government partners, and obviously different departments within each of our city as well. This was certainly on display here in the city of Peoria as we had to grapple with a global pandemic on a local basis. And as you'll hear shortly, all of those different partners made it together to really look at ways that we can utilize and provide health and wellness services. So I'd like to introduce, we have Kelly Kincaid, our Chief Community Relations Officer, as well as Sherry Steele, Neighborhood Human Services, Family Youth Services Manager, as well, to present a thanks and award to important community stakeholders. I'll pass it to Kelly.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Mayor and Council. So this evening, part of Neighborhood and Human Services Department, one of our many roles is connecting the community with resources. And we do that through strong partnerships. We do that from collaborations amongst those partners and then leveraging each other's resources because we know as a city we can't do it by ourselves. We developed an amazing partnerships with 3 individual agencies during this pandemic. Emory Health, Albertson Safeway, and Maricopa County Health, as well as like to give a special thank you to Clint Hickman, Maricopa County Supervisor, sorry, just in allowing that collaboration and partnership amongst these 3 really unique individual agencies. I have Sherry Steele that's going to give a few little details about each agency before we present the awards.
Thank you, Kelly, and good evening, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be here before you, especially to celebrate the partnerships, as Kelly mentioned. How did we do it? We did it in a closed building. We did it with staff who were still wanting to help serve the community, and through workarounds and communication and multiple meetings, these folks became my best friends and my team's best friend for years, a couple years. But couldn't have done it alone, certainly, and just are really pleased to be here to share some information with you and to recognize them. So the first partner I want to speak to is Embry, Embry Health with the COVID testing. That was our first partner. The very first need was testing. Nobody could get tested. Nobody could, there was a need for that. Our number right now is 380,000 and counting, with 2 sites still going. So there's still that high community need that we're meeting, and we couldn't do that alone. This evening we have Miguel Pedraza here with us, and I'd like to give him his award and let him say a few words.
Awesome. Thank you for having us here today. It's been very important for Embry Health to continue providing our services throughout this pandemic to the communities. I know it's been hard for a lot of you. It's been hard for us at Embry Health, but it's an honor to be here in front of you and receive this award on behalf of Embry Health, and we will continue fighting against COVID-19 as long as we're allowed to. Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. Our second partner we'd like to recognize is our vaccine provider, Albertsons Pharmacy Safeway. Partnered with us on our highest day, we served 750 people at the community center. Our team got very competitive and very aggressive on how much help we wanted to do for those who are looking for vaccines. Our total number to date is 18,754 vaccines out of our beautiful community center. Couldn't have done that without my friend and colleague, Erin Epley from Albertsons Safeway Pharmacy.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor working with the City of Peoria, working with Sherry and Kelly both. The community center, the staff there was instrumental working together to really step up to a public need. As you know, the vaccine was crucial in fighting this pandemic. It still is. And just kind of our partnership and collaboration has, again, been a pleasure, and looking forward to future collaborations as well as we step up to public health needs. So thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Our next guest tonight is Martine Nowakowski, and Martine is a partner with Maricopa County Department of Public Health. Back when this all started, Martine made sure that those vaccines that Erin and her team needed were available through Maricopa County Department of Public Health. That evolved into home testing kits. We did a wellness activity at a park before spring break to do one final push before folks traveled. So we were always improvising and innovating to see how else we could meet the need. And Martine and his team at county have been amazing, just as Erin and Miguel. So Martine, if you'd like to come up. Our numbers too, I forgot this, sorry. Our numbers for Martine, we did for our at-home COVID test kits, 2,600 home test kits were given out free to residents in Peoria. So, Martine.
Thank you, nice being here tonight, and thank you for the recognition, but the true recognition is to the City of Peoria. So thank you all for this tremendous job y'all did. And it really began at the very beginning. I remember Kelly notifying us like, hey, we need employee and essential worker vaccinations. So we did that. And then it came to, can we do some drive-through? And it turned into the community center, doing it. And then the ballpark, and it just kept on, the ideas kept flowing from your staff. And it's a reflection of the great leadership we have in Peoria. And I got to tell you, you have no bigger cheerleader at the Department of Public Health than me. So they think I'm a Peoria employee by now, so it's just outstanding. And I got to recognize the fire department because they were at the community center and giving those shots and supporting the effort too. So thank you for this recognition, and thank you, Kelly and Sherry. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very important to recognize these incredible stakeholders that go through and the leadership with all of those groups as well. Thank you so much to Maricopa County leadership as well, as we had mentioned, the supervisors, including Supervisor Hickman, as well as their administration have been wonderful, and just wonderful partnership we look forward to continuing with. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for all of the work that you did for the City of Peoria and our residents and employees. We appreciate it. Okay, the next and final presentation is a proclamation, National Public Works Week. Look at that beautiful picture right there. This is a proclamation recognizing May 15th through 21st as Public Works Week. The American Public Works Association proudly announced this year's theme as Ready and Resilient. As you can see on the screen, this year's poster showcases the superheroes that lie within each and every Public Works professional. Today, we celebrate professionals from Public Works, Water Services, Engineering, and Parks and Rec who have always been ready and resilient to overcome any obstacle in their way to serve our community. And now I would like to ask the Director of Public Works and Water Services to join me at the chamber floor for the reading of the proclamation. To bear with me for a moment because this is a very long and formal proclamation, which you all deserve. So, starts with, whereas Public Works infrastructure, facilities, and services are of vital importance to sustainable communities and to the health, safety, and well-being of the people of the city of Peoria, Arizona. And whereas throughout the global coronavirus pandemic, Public Works services such as water, sewer, engineering, project management, recycling, bulk trash, right-of-way maintenance, street, fleet, and facility repairs, all of those things represented here today, proceeded uninterrupted throughout the crisis, delivering essential services to the Peoria community that maintained a sense of normalcy. And whereas certain Public Works personnel dealt directly with higher risk situations, such as transporting bus and paratransit passengers to jobs, medical appointments, and grocery stores, wastewater personnel dealing with infected sewage, custodians cleaning high exposure areas and rooms, or engineers managing critical construction projects with large workforces. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the United States of America to gain knowledge of and to maintain an interest and understanding of the importance of Public Works and Public Works programs in their respective communities. And whereas this year's theme, Ready and Resilient, reflects the collaboration we have all endeavored upon during this extraordinary time and signifies the contributions that Public Works employees and services provided in support of our everyday quality of life. And whereas the year 2022 marks the 62nd annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now, therefore, I, Kathy Carlett, Mayor of the City of Peoria in the state of Arizona, do hereby designate the week of May 15th through 21st, 2022 as National Public Works Week. Let's give them all a hand. I am going to hand this microphone to our Director of Public Works, Jay Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce some of the heroes, superheroes of the Public Works Department. From streets, I've got Charlie Matos. I've got Jaime Padron. And Victor Garcia. Raise your hand, Victor. From solid waste, I've got Melissa Avila. And Leanne Miller. From facilities, I've got Francis Hernandez and Angel Garcia. From transit, Tony Mackel. And last but not fleet, Tim Page from Fleet.
Again, the superheroes are here, so I'm just going to go down and introduce them. And now I got to remember what division they're with. Thanks, Jay. I appreciate that. So we'll start out with Vince Uriardi. He's with the collections group. Mike Klingener, he's also with the collections group. Mark Williams, water treatment plant. Ryan Bagley over here, he's with the distribution department, keeps all the mains repaired. Roman Palafox, I'm going to say that wrong. Palafox, thank you, Roman. He's over in the environmental world. A lot of regulations in our world. Adam Belaska, he's part of the environmental divisions. We've got Chase Jones. When he doesn't wear a hat, I have no idea who he is. Hello, Chase. And we have Liz Crespo over here out of Beardsley Water Treatment Plant. She also won Operator of the Year this year. Tom Rattler back here with distribution. Justin Cullum with the distribution team. Jesse Moreno. We've got Zach Long, and we have Tom Jessing over at the Joe Max facility. These are who make it happen right here. And Dennis Whitney, who refused to come down, he's sitting up there.
Gosh, we are all so proud. You guys make us proud every single day, and we can't tell you how meaningful it is to all of us that you were on the front lines, that you were out there making sure that our city functioned every single day. A lot of people had the opportunity to stay home, to just, quarantine themselves and stay out of harm's way. But not these people. None of them had that opportunity. They all had to go out there and service the residents of the city of Peoria, and we are forever grateful. Thank you. Right. Okay, this is the final call to submit speaker request forms. If you have not submitted your speaker request forms, you must do it at this moment. Return your form to the clerk, and you will be recognized at the appropriate time. We will now move on to the consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine or have been previously reviewed and/or discussed by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If the presiding officer receives a timely notice of a request for removal, an item may be removed from the consent agenda for consideration on the regular agenda. And I have not received a notice of request for removal. Additionally, tonight's consent agenda includes items posted as a public hearing. If there is a member of the public present who wants to address a public hearing that is on the consent agenda, this item will be removed from the consent agenda and heard during the regular agenda. I have no speaker request forms recognizing a consent agenda item. Therefore, do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I move we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And the consent agenda passes unanimously. We are now going to embark on a number of public hearings. So items 26, 27, and 28 will be heard together, and these items will be voted on separately. So item 26 is annexation, Arizona State Land, Parcel B, 109th Avenue and Rose Garden Lane. Item number 27 is the initial zoning of the same parcel, and item number 28 is the rezone of that parcel. So I will turn that over to Mr. Tyne.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And Chris Hawkes, our Planning and Community Development Director, will present first on the first two items. He'll provide a presentation on regarding the annexation and zoning case in our coordination with the Arizona State Land Department. Take a pause for action items, and then we'll go to the third presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Tyne, and good evening, Mayor and Council. As we indicated, we're going to present items 26 and 27 are together. Because those pertain to a proposed annexation and initial zoning, they include some city-owned land. And so after we deliberate on these, the rezone, which is 28R, that just pertains to the state land. So it's a different area of geography here.
Okay, we'll vote on those separately.
Okay. The City of Peoria, we're the applicant on these two cases. The area is identified in red on the screen. It is generally located at the northwest corner of 109th Avenue and Rose Garden Lane, and it's bounded by 107th and 109th Avenue along the eastern portion of it, and Tesma Road and the Agua Fria River on the western portion. So the blue lotted line you see, that's Deer Valley Road. That's currently under construction by the county and provides access over to the Cortobello, or will provide access rather. Overall, the subject area is 226 acres, of which 37 acres are owned by the city of Peoria. So the area that's owned by the city of Peoria is denoted in that, I guess, that brown color there, and it's pretty much in a riverbed. The rest of the land is owned by the state land department. So there are two requests tonight. 26R is the final annexation of 226 acres. 27R is initial zoning for that same 226 acres. This graphic may look familiar. The areas in orange are state land parcels that have been targeted for annexation in which we have received state selection board pre-approval. These are areas in our planning area. They're either adjacent to development or infrastructure, and in this case, it's important they develop with our standards in place. Or they are located along the Loop 303, which, as you all know, is within our economic development corridor. And in that vein, it's important that we have a hand in shaping that destiny. So I mentioned earlier that these areas have been pre-approved by the Land Commissioner and the State Selection Board. The State Selection Board is comprised of the Governor, Treasurer, and the Attorney General. So with pre-approval, the State Land Department requires that the final annexation of these areas occur in concert with an entitlement, and that's why we're here tonight. Before I move forward, this has been a long process. I do want to recognize some people. I'm glad to be in this position here. I do want to recognize our staff. I want to recognize Cody Gleason and Lori Deaver on the planning staff. I also want to recognize Vanessa Hickman from the City Attorney's Office and Katie Gregory. I also want to recognize some key people in the State Land Department, Jim Perry, Mark Edelman, Karen Dada, and the representative Karen Oberholzer in RVI as part of their team. So let's talk about the annexation area. This is a graphic of the 226 area with the general plan map in the background. So what looks like the tail of this polygon, that's the area owned by the city of Peoria, rather. So as we look at annexations, we go through a threshold analysis. We have a planning area that's attached to our general plan, and this extends beyond our boundaries. These are areas that are within our sphere of influence and someday contemplated to be part of the city. These are part of our long-range planning. So this is in our planning area. It's also adjacent to existing development. The city does have infrastructure available to readily serve the area. It also brings the Tesma Road truck reliever route that was built by the city into the city of Peoria. You'll recall that was built in 2014, so it's almost been 10 years there. But it enables us to have enforcement capabilities of that roadway. It's also important that the area develop under the city. We have elevated standards over the county, and this enables the city to have a part in its eventual development. So right now, the future development under Peoria, there's no state land auction planned at this time. There's no specific developer or development plan contemplated at this time. The purpose of this and the subsequent cases would be to establish the zoning, the allowable standards, and really position the property for a future endeavor. We've identified that this is consistent with the city's annexation policy. This graphic illustrates the process at a glance. It's simplified, and it looks like it's only 3 steps, but I can assure you we've been through a lot of steps to get to this point here. So you can see in the middle, we had a public hearing on April 19th. That was a no-action public hearing in front of the City Council, and then that closed up the 30-day window, and then now we're to a point where we've collected the signature, and we're here in front of you for the adoption of the final annexation ordinance for that piece of it. So what I want to do now is briefly shift gears to the initial zoning. The Arizona Revised Statute requires that we adopt what's called initial zoning, or otherwise known as translational zoning, within 6 months of annexation. So in our pre-annexation development agreement with state land, it required that all these actions occur on the same night. That's why we have all these on the agenda this evening. Under state statute, the initial zoning can't be more intense or dense than what was permitted in the county. The annexation area is zoned in the county as RU 43 or Rural 43. In the city of Peoria, our most equivalent zoning district is Suburban Ranch or SR 43. They're pretty similar. In terms of notification, like our zoning cases, we do provide notice of application, notice of hearing. They go to all properties within the quarter-mile radius and all registered HOAs. Legal ad was published in the paper and the site was posted. Now, unlike the rezone, a initial zoning does not require a neighborhood meeting. It's seen as a pretty routine matter. We did have a meeting that was held in regard to the associated rezone case, and I'll talk about that on that item 28R. In terms of opposition and support, we have received both. However, it doesn't cleanly delineate between the annexation and the rezone. My sense is that the public comment is really geared towards the rezone and the ultimate development of that property. So we'll talk about that at the next item. And just as a preview, you'll see this site again in 28R, but this is kind of an accounting of the support and opposition. We've received 10 letters in opposition, 1 in support. Those in opposition have noted, you can see on the screen, they'd rather keep the property undeveloped and not impact wildlife. Concerns about the ability of the schools to serve the residents, concerns about traffic congestion, and perceived impacts from growth. And those in support, we did have a letter in support, acknowledged that state land is not preserved land, and he thought it would be a good addition with thoughtful design as part of this. This item went to the Planning and Zoning Commission. We held a public hearing there on April 21st, 2002. We had no speakers in support or opposition to the annexation or initial zoning. I'll note that we did have 1 speaker in opposition to the rezone, 28R. After deliberation, the commission did vote 4-0 to recommend approval of both cases to the City Council. So that brings us to the key findings. For the annexation, we've determined that the subject area is within the planning area. It does advance the city's strategic objectives with state land. It's consistent with our city annexation policy. With the initial zoning, state law requires it to be equivalent to what we have in the city. And given characteristics of the property, the most analogous to the City of Peoria zoning is that suburban ranch or SR 43 zoning district. So Mayor and Council, I'll close there. We've got 2 items that we're asking for consideration on. 26R is the final annexation for the 226 acres, and then 27R, that is the initial zoning for those 226 acres. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding 26 and 27? Okay, so this annexes the property in, and in doing so, then the City of Peoria can enforce the race car driving that is happening on the Tesmer Boulevard Road at this time, right?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Okay, so that is one good thing. Anyone? All right, so then let's go ahead and vote on item 26R. Oh, this is a public hearing, excuse me. I am going to open this public hearing. Is there a member of the public who would like to address this item? Yes, sir. Sir, are you, did you fill out the form for 28R?
I think it was 26, 27, and 28. Maybe I filled out 3.
Okay, is your name Greg? It is. Okay, I just have you at 28R, but if you would like to speak to this one, you're perfectly, okay, thank you. Please state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Greg Nickens at 10851 West Deanna Drive. I'm right across the street from this proposed annexation. I have some concerns because of the traffic and the Deer Valley going through. My post office box is right on the road. I'm probably 8 feet from the road, and I know they're going to widen the road. So my feeling is that you collect taxes and so forth because of the land. I know it's going to happen. What I would really like to do is see if we can shape that a little bit so that we have some setbacks and try to reduce the traffic. But the 2 different projects that have come in, the one on 109th Avenue and Rose Garden Lake Pleasant Road and Rose Garden, a lot of houses are currently under construction there. Mm-hmm. And also if they develop this 226 acres, which I'm sure they're going to do. They changed the zoning. I have an R8,000 square foot lot. They have a 5,000 square foot lot. So it's going to be a little bit denser. So what I look at there is there's going to be a lot more traffic going along. So I'm wondering on the Deer Valley Road going across to get over to Portobello and so forth, I think everybody's going to cut down through that section. They're going to try to avoid 107th Avenue, come down and try to cut through. So I don't know if there's something that can be done there, But what I would like to see, because I think it's coming, you know, I would like to see us be able to shape that a little bit better than maybe just a road coming through.
Yeah.
And that's what I ask your help for. If we can figure out how to do that, I'd be a lot happier.
Well, thank you very much for your comments. I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Okay.
Us annexing this in allows any development that comes to be required to adhere to design standards, which has to do with setbacks and the appearance and traffic studies and things that have to come through there. At this point, we're not talking about any particular development, so that would be a public hearing all on its own. But if we don't annex it in, it can still develop, but it would be in county standards, which are not Peoria standards. So this is helpful. I wish that I could say that we could always keep it vacant. I wish we had that authority. In the state of Arizona, we don't always have that authority. And I don't know if anyone wants to know my opinion of that road coming through from Sun City, bringing all of that traffic into our city, but probably not, so I won't say anything about that. But that is the county bringing that road across for relief for their residents. And, you know, it's a grid system, and we are a regional network, and so we're, you know, that happens. We will just have to do everything that we can to mitigate the traffic once it gets onto our side. And I appreciate your comments about cut-through traffic. It's something we should always watch out for, and we certainly will. So thank you for those comments. All right, is there anyone else who would like to speak to this public hearing on item 26R? Seeing none, I will close this public hearing. And I will ask for a motion on item 26R. We have a motion and a second. Council, please vote. And it passes unanimously. And now we will move to item 27R. Do I need to open the public hearing again, or was that public hearing? Yes? Yes. Thank you. You know, I love public hearings. I declare this public hearing open. I do not have any other requests to speak. Is there any members of the public here who would like to address this? All right, seeing none, I will close this public hearing. Council, any discussion? All right, do I have a motion on item 27R?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Please vote. And it passes unanimously. All right, now we will move to item 28R, rezone Arizona State Land Department Parcel B, 109th Avenue and Rose Garden Lane.
Great, thank you, Mayor and Council again. So as we just adopted the initial zoning, now we'll talk about a rezone from that initial zoning. So this, again, pertains to just the state land portion of the area that was annexed. So it's just the area in red. It's about 189 acres in size. The applicant is Carolyn Oberholzer on behalf of the Arizona State Land Department. The proposal, again, is to rezone it from suburban ranch to a new planned area development. So for the audience, a PAD or planned area development, that is a customized type of zoning district. It allows us to adjust the standards to respond to some of the site features and some of the area context. So if approved, the PAD would facilitate the future development of the property into a single-family residential subdivision with a maximum density of 3.5 units per acre, rather. As I mentioned in the earlier case, there's no current auction timeline or no current development plan in play. Again, this provides the regulations and standards, so when a future option comes forward, the property is properly positioned. So I want to spend a little bit of time on this slide, just a few minutes. There are some misconceptions about state land, so we'll do a quick State Land 101. The State Land Department, they manage 9 million acres across Arizona. This represents about 13% of the total land base of Arizona. They hold land for the eventual sale to benefit the trust beneficiaries. There happens to be 13 trust beneficiaries, and they include things like common schools, universities, state hospital, et cetera. Happens to be that common schools, which is K through 12, happens to be the largest beneficiary, and 88% of the state land parcels across the state have that underlying beneficiary of common schools. Now, as you know, Peoria has a lot of state land. They happen to comprise about 25% of our land basis for our planning area. So they're a big part of our future for sure. Sometimes people believe state land is open space or preserve. It certainly is not. They have a constitutional mission to manage the state land assets to maximize return to the trustees. So land is often held until it reaches pinnacle value, and then it's auctioned, and then the proceeds go to the underlying beneficiary. So to talk briefly about the context, the site is relatively flat, but it does have a sharp drop from the site down to Tesma Road along the western edge and Agua Fria. The site is bounded by 107th and 109th on the eastern side. The Deer Valley connection, again, you can see it with the yellow dotted line that's under construction by Maricopa County Department of Transportation. This will be a 4-lane roadway that will bridge the Agua Fria. It will also bridge Tesma Road and provide access to El Mirage Road near Cortobella. The roadway construction, as I understand, should be completed by fall sometime. In addition to the roadways and the escarpment, the area also has a number of site constraints. So looking at the graphic here, there happens to be a 230-foot SRP overhead transmission line that runs along the western portion of the property at a diagonal. Along with that, there's also a 100-foot regional drainage channel that is along the southern boundary at Rose Garden Lane. With these constraints, it's going to require flexibility and creative design. Some of the land uses in the area, to the north, there's a mix of the vacant land, some single-family properties, and also an existing mining operation in the county. To the east is 107th and 109th, as I spoke, and then a number of established single-family communities, along with Zuni Hills Elementary School. And then south of the property at Rose Garden Lane is Ventana Lakes, the residential community. Okay, this graphic illustrates the general plan on the left and the current zoning on the right. So as we refer to this as Parcel B, it's designated for traditional residential. This is a single-family residential designation, and it happens to be the same designation as the properties to the east and south. It has a density of 2 to 5 units per acre. So the applicant this evening is proposing a change in zoning to, again, to establish that PAD, that planned area development, establish those standards. They are looking for a maximum density of 3.5 units per acre. That density would be right in line with that 2 to 5 units per acre that the general plan calls for. And as I'll show in a minute, it is consistent with adjacent neighborhoods in the area. Now, when you look at the zoning map on the right, most of the neighborhoods that are adjacent to this site are zoned R16. That's a single-family zoning district. 6,000 is the minimum lot size, and there's a few areas that are zoned R18, 8,000 square foot minimum lot size. And then the brown area to the south in Ventana Lakes, that's actually zoned RM1 or multifamily, even though it's single-family, a small lot single-family there. All right, lot size and character, of course, is always a point of consideration in these cases. So the proposed minimum lot size is 5,175 square feet in this PAD. However, this PAD does require that at least half be 5,750 square feet or larger. So there are a variety of lot sizes in the area. I want to show you those just to provide some context. That is the Alta Vista community. I'm sorry, not the Alta Vista. That is Casa del Rey. That is 2,880 square feet in yellow. There are some areas that have a minimum lot size of 4,500 square feet, namely Ventana Lakes to the south. There are some areas that have a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet, Wildflower, Deer Valley Ranch, and Alta Vista. And then Rose Garden that is on the southern end of the site at a minimum lot size of 8,000 square feet. When we pull back and look at the density and look at the area densities here, you know, Alta Vista has a 3.5 units per acre, Deer Valley Ranch 3.7 units per acre, Wildflower Point 3.8 units per acre, Rose Garden 3.2 units per acre, and Ventana Lakes 3.7 units per acre. Again, this proposes a maximum of 3.5 units per acre. As you can see, it's certainly in terms of the potential yield, it's certainly in line with those adjacent communities. And I would endeavor to say that at the point in time when we do have a development plan in front of us, and they do their additional engineering, and they have to create a lotting plan that has to respond to not only our open space requirements, but also the overhead power line, I would imagine that the actual yielding density would be far less than 3.5 units per acre when you take into account all those impairments on the property. As I mentioned, there's no current auction at this point, and the PAD sets a maximum density of 3.5 units per acre. If you did the math, again, that would be roughly 661 residential lots. But as I indicated just a minute ago, with all those impairments, I would imagine that number would be quite a bit less when you're trying to develop a plan that responds to those features. Again, we talked about the minimum lot size. The PAD requires compliance with the city's open space requirements, and trail connectivity is a huge portion of that. I think the overhead power line and other points provide opportunities for some of those trail connections there. They would also have to comply with the City of Peoria's infrastructure and roadway improvements, which would be identified at the preliminary plat stage. So briefly on some of the traffic improvements, since that did come up in some of the comments, those would be determined at the time of pre-plat through a traffic impact analysis, which would be required for review. And at that point, we would determine access considerations to the site and also the roadway infrastructure. I also want to point out it happens to be a number of other capital projects in the area to be mindful that will help improve the overall area circulation. So as we know, the first bullet point, the Deer Valley roadway that's currently under construction. There's a traffic signal at 107th and Rose Garden that's planned for fiscal year 24 construction. There's a traffic signal at Deer Valley 105th, which is also fiscal year 24. And then the widening of 107th to a 2-median 2 from Williams to Hatfield, that's in the capital improvement plan for fiscal year 27 to 28. So a number of projects in the near future for that area. I want to talk about some of the public outreach. The applicant had a neighborhood meeting as required under the rezone process. That was held both in person, and also there was a virtual platform that was available there during the meeting. We had approximately 34 attendees in person, and we had about 22 that attended online. And so very spirited discussion at that meeting, and some of the topics that we heard about was traffic congestion, school capacity, concerns about the loss of this land to development, and desires for it to remain open space, and then concerns about water supply. As you know, this also goes through the review through the school districts, and this is part of Peoria Unified School District. We work closely with the district. They are part of the development process, and what we do is, although schools are the legally delegated responsibility of the state of Arizona, we do work very closely with the school district so they understand that where growth is occurring, the pace of growth, and the absorption of growth, and so to help them in their planning purposes. Students that would be generated in this development, they would be designated for Zuni Hills or Park Ridge for the elementary kids, and then Liberty or Sunrise Mountain for the high school kids. They have participated in the review, and the applicant, the State Land Department, has had dialogue with the school district. And so there is a letter in your packet, Exhibit 5, and the school district indicated that they're continuing to take steps to try to improve capacity in the area. And they have been in communication. We will facilitate further discussion when the property is auctioned, when there's a developer that has been identified, and we'll facilitate discussion with them in the school district as we move forward. Okay, so this is the slide I showed at the previous item. Again, 10 letters in opposition, 1 in support. I discussed some of those items that were matters of concern from some of the folks that showed up to the neighborhood meeting, and the person that provided a letter in support, what that person noted. The item, what went before the Planning and Zoning Commission, for that, we do provide a notice of hearing that goes to all property owners within a quarter-mile radius and all registered HOAs within a 1-mile radius. There happen to be 29 HOAs within this 1-mile radius, and they all received notification for that. We also require a legal ad to be published in the newspaper of record, and the site was properly posted. So we did have a public hearing on April 21st, 2022. There were no speakers in support or opposition to the annexation of initial zoning, but we did have a speaker in opposition to the rezone, and he did talk about some of the concerns that I illustrated on the prior slide. After a discussion and deliberation, the commission did vote unanimously to recommend approval of this case to the City Council. So that brings me to my last slide. So what are the key findings and recommended action? With this PAD, this will set a 3.5 unit maximum density. This does, again, conform to the general plan traditional residential category, and it does achieve the goals and objectives of the City of Peoria general plan. It also aids in the completion of key strategic annexation goals, and I believe allows for implementation of elevated City of Peoria design standards and development requirements. So, Mayor and Council, with that, the recommendation is to approve the rezone in accordance with conditions of approval, Exhibit 1 in your packet. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Council, are there any questions for Mr. Hawkes? All right, I declare this public hearing open. Mr. Nikens, did you wish to speak?
I'd like to make another comment.
Please.
Being as I live in the area for the last 23, 24 years there, one of the big issues that we're going to find on this Deer Valley Road going through, it cuts off about 5 miles, because most people, that's approximate, have to go on 107th Avenue all the way up to Happy Valley Road and then cut across to get to the 303 or into those neighborhoods over there. It's going to be like a super highway going through there because it's cutting off so much time for those people to get across. So I'm wondering if, and a suggestion might be on my road, I'm thinking it's 109th Avenue is going to be a racetrack anyway, but if we could maybe do something at the circle on 107th, and this might be a suggestion, I don't know if it's too late to do anything or not, but people that are in that neighborhood, maybe they come down and don't follow the circle around, can only go one way back towards 107th. That might cut down some of the traffic that's going to hit 109th to avoid 107th or Deer Valley.
Are you saying a roundabout?
The roundabout.
Okay.
So I'm saying maybe we could just go one way so that everybody's not cutting through the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Because, Deer Valley's pretty wide going across, and, it's a bigger road. And you come down through the neighborhoods, and I'm telling you, I know that everybody's going to go there, because we've been waiting for this road for a long time.
I know.
So if we could, I don't know if they can do anything on that or not, but I would suggest that they do something with that.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments, and we will definitely be working with our engineers and city management to make sure that we find ways to direct that traffic away, as far away as we can from our residential neighborhoods. Does anybody feel me looking at them? I'm hoping that we can successfully do that. Right now, we do not have a developer for that area. And again, I do have to say that bringing it into the city gives us a lot more control than if it was, part of the county. So that's the good news and the bad news. And the road is coming. So we're just going to have to do all we can to mitigate it. Thank you for those comments. Is there any other members of the public who would like to speak to this issue? Seeing none, I will close this public hearing. Council, is there any further discussion or comments? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for all your participation. All right, the next item is item 29R. This is a public hearing, fiscal year 2023, final budget adoption and truth in taxation. And I will turn it over to Mr. Tyne to begin.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor and Council. And these are some of the final formal steps that we have for the passage of the fiscal year 2023 budget. And with us, we have Peter Christensen, Deputy Finance Director, as well as Andy Granger, Deputy City Manager, who will offer a brief presentation, followed by a joint hearing on the budget and a legal term that we term truth in taxation. Important to note, however, and as Peter will mention, the actual adoption of the fiscal year 23 budget will occur shortly after a number of other budget items. So we'll go through that, but we'll provide you a presentation right now. Thank you.
So before you begin, can I interrupt here? So what we are doing is this is going to be the public hearing on the budget and the truth in taxation, but we will have another hearing on the budget.
So you will have a public hearing on the budget adoption and truth in taxation, then an action item on truth in taxation. Then you will have a separate item just on the adoption of the budget at a separate time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tyne. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the second in a series of steps to adopt a budget for fiscal year 2023. 2 weeks ago, Council adopted or approved the tentative budget, which set the maximum appropriation for the year, as well as the 10-year CIP. And tonight, as Mr. Tyne mentioned, we're here to consider a truth in taxation increase, as well as the adoption of the final budget, both of which require a public hearing. And then the final step will be the adoption of the final property tax levy on June 7th. So first, for the final budget, and this presentation will serve both for this item 29R as well as for 33R, which is on a separate special meeting at the end of the regular meeting. This is a slide you've seen before. It just gives a high-level overview of what this budget is. It is a financially balanced budget. We have the resources and revenues to support all the expenditures, both one-time and ongoing, in the budget. It's our best attempt to translate the City Council's goals and top priorities into a financial plan, and we've done our best to do that. We've talked about how this budget is a little larger than those in recent years. That's because we are addressing some of the pent-up demand from the pandemic and giving departments the resources they need to serve the community and provide those services. There are no increases in the city's sales tax rate or property tax rate, which we'll talk about in a minute. And while there is a modest utility rate adjustment that will take effect in January 2023, the city does continue to enjoy one of the lowest tax and fee burdens in the valley. So the final budget totals $783 million. This is the same total as the tentative budget that was adopted 2 weeks ago. This slide just breaks down the budget into the four major components, the largest being operations, which is about half of the total at $371.6 million. With this budget, we are proposing to add 28 new FTEs, bringing the city's total authorized strength to 1,354.95 FTEs, and this is on top of the 36 new FTEs that were added in the middle of this fiscal year. So moving on to truth in taxation, this takes a little bit more explanation, but in essence, when the city's primary property tax levy goes up from the prior year exclusive of any new construction or properties added to the tax rolls, then it triggers the truth in taxation requirements, which is a series of public notices informing residents that property taxes, the notice says they're increasing. In reality, the rate is not increasing. It's because of increases in valuations, which I'll get into a little bit more. Just as a reminder, property taxes in Arizona are split between a primary and a secondary levy. The primary levy can be used for any general government purpose. This gets deposited into the city's general fund. The secondary level, or the secondary levy, is goes into a debt service fund and can only be used for the retirement or the payment of interest and principal payments on outstanding general obligation bonds. The truth in taxation process only applies to the primary levy, so any increase to that that is not related to new construction would trigger this. And just to review, the tax levy is a function of two variables: the tax rate, which is controlled by the city council, and the assessed valuation, which is performed by the county assessor's offices and given to us each February. So for the tax levy to be going up, it requires one or both of these variables to be increasing. So looking at the two variables, first the tax rate. This chart shows that the city's tax rate, total tax rate, has stayed the same since 2009, has not changed except for a shift from the secondary to the primary tax rate in 2019. So that $1.44 rate per $100 of assessed valuation is divided at 29 cents for the primary tax rate and $1.15 for the secondary tax rate. And again, there is no proposed change from last year's rate to this year. Now looking at the second variable, which is the assessed valuation, you can see clearly here that the city's assessed valuation has been increasing since 2013. The increases are capped at 5% per year, but this is the variable. These increases in the assessed valuation of the city is what is triggering the truth in taxation requirements. When we apply the new assessed valuation from the county assessor's offices to the existing rates that we have, or the proposed rates for FY23, we get a total levy for FY23 of $27.2 million. That's a $1.6 million increase over FY22. $1.3 million of that is on the secondary levy, and then $318,000 on the primary levy. That primary levy of increase of that $318,000, $221,000 is related to existing properties. So that specifically is what triggers the truth in taxation requirements. The city is in compliance with all the different statutory requirements for public noticing. We issued a news release on April 27th and then followed that up with separate notices in the Peoria Times and in the Daily Independent. There are also outreach and notification steps involved in the final budget, and all those have been met as well. So tonight's actions, as Mr. Tyne mentioned, first will be a single public hearing on both the truth in taxation increase and the FY 2023 final budget. Once public comments have been received and that public hearing is closed, council will need to take a roll call vote on the truth in taxation increase to the primary property tax levy for FY 23. And then we have item 33R on a separate special meeting to follow this, which will be the vote on the adoption of the final budget. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Finn?
Thank you, Mayor. I had a question on our opportunity with the refinancing of debt. About 4 meetings ago, we had an opportunity to refinance some of our bonds, I think through some refunding bonds, and we went with a special vote, and we couldn't get it passed. And I'm curious what the difference was in the debt service. I figure this is probably where it belongs, the question. What was the difference between, had that actually gone through on the special vote that evening, we had to wait 30 days when we knew that rates were going to go up? Do we know the difference in what that delay, that 30-day delay cost?
Mayor, Councilmember Finn, we do know the difference. I'm going to ask our CFO, Kevin Burt, to come up, and hopefully he has that off the top of his head.
With that coat he's rocking tonight, he's going to have it. Watch this.
Thank you. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for the question. This was for actually the issuance of some new debt with water and wastewater utility, and the additional time. Yes, we did not have the emergency clause, and so the additional time resulted in about an increase of 0.2% in the interest rate, or
2 basis points. Yeah,
a little more than that, which translated into about $729,000 in additional costs to the issuance.
Wow, that's unfortunate. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Councilmember Dunn?
So on that vote that Councilmember Finn is, it wasn't a vote, it was a consensus that he was referring to of going to bond. Again, it was unanimous that we voted, our consensus not to move forward. And the reason why is because it was going out with the, going out to bond requires a vote. And we went through all the details. So it would have been a vote to the public. There was a consensus to wait till a year, 2023. And this was mainly, again, for funding. And, I keep talking about funding for parks. It's not that I don't like parks. We have beautiful parks. We have, really, really nice parks. My problem is we're spending so much money on parks, and now we're taking it out of the general fund because we didn't want to wait the year. We want to push it through this year for election. And it's ridiculous because, you know, one of the things that I'm really concerned about, and I keep hammering on this, we have a very high crime rate. You know, I've seen, you know, I have shootings in my neighborhoods,
Councilmember Dunn,
deaths.
the agenda item here is...
It has to do with the money and what he brought up for the bond.
Can I ask our city attorney to weigh in, please?
So I presume the item that was Councilmember Finn was referring to was a public vote that was taken at a meeting within the last month.
It was on water and wastewater bonds.
Yes, so there was a public vote taken on that item, and Councilmember Dunn was the dissenting vote, is my recollection. So I believe that is what Councilmember Finn raised as the discussion.
Yeah, if I can clarify that, that's exactly what I was talking about. Yes.
So it did not need to go to a vote of the public. It was a council vote, and we did vote that evening. Without a majority, though, we were not able to institute the emergency clause, which would have let it go into effect immediately instead of waiting the 30 days, which then cost us the $729,000.
Again, in regards to what was being funded. So I'll leave it at that. I do have a question on 29R, the public, the truth in lending. I understand that it's not raising taxes, but the evaluations is going to bring in more money to the city. Will this in any way, a vote yes, be approving any part of the budget? Is it just the tax, truth in tax and lending, or is this also lumping in the budget?
No, the roll call vote is specific to the truth in taxation increase on the primary property tax levy, not the final budget.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other comments, discussion? Okay, so just to clarify, the $1.44 tax rate that the city has had since, what, 2009. 2009. We have not raised our property taxes since 2009. That remains the same. People's property values continue to go up, but there is also a 5% cap on how much that can be taxed with the increase. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
All right, thank you. Then I will entertain a motion. Oh, wait. This is a public hearing. I declare this public hearing open. Is there any members of the public who would like to address this public hearing? I declare this public hearing closed. Now, if there is no further comments, I will entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second on item 29R. Please vote.
Mayor, we need to do a
Yes.
roll call vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Finn,
Yes.
Councilmember Dunn,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Patina,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunt,
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer,
Yes on item 29R.
Councilmember Edwards,
Yes.
and Mayor Cartwright.
Yes. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And now we will move on to item 30R, which is recognition of superior public service. And I will turn it over to Mr. Tyne.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor and Council, to discuss about this item. Recognition of superior public service really refers to the council priority in their livability initiatives. And as we know, and for the audience, to try and, your council goals really try to be the things that most impact the quality of life for Peoria residents. And chief among this organization is a commitment to superior public service. With the onset of the pandemic that we saw primarily in 2020, our employees exemplified this. They were required to shift gears quickly, deliver the same level of service to residents, and do so with flexibility and resilience and commitment. In many cases, staff performed tasks well outside their normal job descriptions and adjusted to provided service in so many different ways. Remote delivery is an example, other creative ways to deliver alternative services for them. Over the last year, I've heard from many of you, council members here at the dais, as well as informally, who have really consulted on how best can we express an appreciation to our City of Peoria employees, and while also doing so in a way that helps to ensure that we're retaining them in this unique time that is a talent shortage that we see here throughout the country. So to assist us with that, we have our Deputy City Manager, Andy Granger, as well as Christine Nickel, Human Resources Director, who've developed a concept for your consideration. I'll pass it to Ms. Nickel.
Thank you. Mayor, members of council, it really is a great pleasure to be before you this evening to discuss an item that will provide recognition of superior public service by City of Peoria employees over the last 2 years. As Mr. Tyne mentioned, this item was informally brought to staff at the request of the mayor and city council, looking for a mechanism to provide recognition to city staff who, from the onset of the pandemic through the post-pandemic residual effects, have been hard at work ensuring that residents and businesses have all the support, services, and resources that are needed. With the recent return to our new normal, which residual effects, we all know that, employees have been faced with new challenges, a volatile economy, challenges to the labor market, increased demand, and a higher cost of living, all causing strain to employees. With this item and per your request for recognition, staff proposes a discretionary bonus in an amount up to $2,000 per employee to provide appreciation in the form of monetary relief for all employees, all groups. The next few slides provide just a couple of examples of some of the extraordinary work done by City of Peoria employees in the last couple of years. And I think it's a great follow-up to some of the things you've heard earlier this evening, the Public Works Recognition Week, the partnerships with some of our community partners. And I think this will just be a great kickoff to even more information. As we review the workforce achievements, it's important to remember that much of what you're seeing and hearing this evening occurred in a very short period of time, while maintaining or even increasing the level of services that are provided. So to begin, the fire, medical, and police departments responded to numerous calls where COVID-19 or COVID-19 symptoms were present. In fact, the fire medical department alone responded to over 10,000 calls with contacts with COVID-19 patients. The Economic Development Services Department assembled a small business task force, and they placed calls to over 19,000 businesses, offering support and resources when they were the most needed. The Neighborhood and Human Services Department, as we just heard earlier, and I'm just going to recap it briefly, provided, through partnerships with Maricopa County, Embry Health, and Albertson Safeway, provided over 200,000 COVID tests, over 18,000 vaccines, and was able to provide over $2 million in rent, mortgage, and utility assistance to residents utilizing various pandemic funding sources. The NHS department also mobilized during this period, providing timely and conveniently located informational meetings with the pop-up van, the first ever Peoria pop-up van. The finance department, in addition to putting together the budget and rolling out new budget software, implemented a one-stop shop allowing residents to pay utility bills online. The workforce response to COVID was robust and multifaceted, and it included the formation of a cross-functional team, including members of departments across the organization, to address issues and concerns, along with providing specialized support from the department citywide. This included, but definitely is not limited to, the IT department quickly deploying software and technology to allow remote work to continue, support from HR and the legal department in the form of policies, procedures. There was also a sophisticated tracking and notification system developed, a 7-day-a-week COVID hotline for employees to reach out and ask questions or report if they were experiencing symptoms. The Public Works Facilities Group provided necessary cleaning, disinfection, and mechanisms to maintain social distancing in group settings. And the Office of Communications team provided much-needed assistance with messaging and timely updates. Then, after some of this pent-up demand due to COVID, we have seen development activity skyrocketing, which leads to increased pressure in the areas of plan review, inspection, and CIP. This lends to our planning and engineering groups really getting to shine and do what they do best. but there's a lot of pressure. As you can imagine, the items listed on the screen are just a really small portion. I couldn't get everything that all of the departments provided me on the screen tonight, but it's absolutely a work, I'm trying to think of the word I meant to say here, is definitely, oh my goodness.
Labor of love.
Definitely a situation where the employees have gone above and beyond providing superior public service. And I really bungled that, but it's been amazing to be even just a small part of it. So, with this presentation tonight and in recognition of superior public service, this request is for council to adopt Resolution 2022-52, approving a discretionary bonus up to $2,000 to all City of Peoria employees in the form of a lump sum. A lump sum payment is a one-time cost which allows the city to recognize employees across all groups while remaining fiscally prudent with taxpayer dollars. Thank you. It's really been a privilege to present on this, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Comment?
Yes, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe that a staff that knows we believe in them and appreciate their hard work will continue working hard. And they will have an allegiance to our city. I can't tell you how many times I go out and I speak to different organizations or just to citizens, and without fail, they always tell me how responsive our city staff is. I was recently talking to the Lions Club, and at the end of the meeting, a fellow said to me, I had an issue with the city, I called them, and not one person called me back, but 2 people called me back. What city does that? And I'll ask the same question. What city does that? That city is Peoria. So because of all those reasons, I'll be supporting this issue.
Thank you. Councilmember Dunn?
I didn't press a button.
Okay. Councilmember Finn?
I did press a button. I just wanted to make a comment on this as well. I agree with everything that Councilmember Patina just said wholeheartedly. But the other comment that I wanted to make, these are unprecedented times in the labor market. You know, in our organization, we have dedicated talent acquisition managers looking for people constantly, and I see signing bonuses for employees to come on board constantly. And I love the fact that we have found a way to recognize those employees that have stayed. We sometimes call it a stay bonus, right? I genuinely feel so much better about giving a stay bonus to someone who has dedicated their time and done things like Councilmember Patina just said. It truly warms my heart that we're able to do that. And like I said, I look at it as a stay bonus, and I say repeatedly, we have the absolute best staff in this city, in the entire country. I'd argue that all day long. So I'm incredibly supportive of it. I think it's a great idea. I just love it.
Thank you. Councilmember Hunt?
I absolutely concur, and I just hope that this, going into every household that it's going to go to, I hope that you really understand that we mean it from our heart. We really, really appreciate our employees, and we can, you know, they say talk is cheap, but we really are putting some money where our mouth is, and hope that it just fills a niche in each of your homes that needs to be filled right now, whether it's a vacation or kids' summer school tuition or whatever it is. It goes with our feelings of respect and just so much appreciation for what our staff does each and every day. And we just don't get a chance to see all of you in person. I wave at my garbage truck drivers as they go by, but that's about it. So just know that we do know what you do, and we really do appreciate you. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? All right. Seeing none.
One more, Mayor.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, not much to add. I just want to echo what my fellow council members have said to the staff. I know, during the pandemic, a lot of the country shut down, but Peoria did not, and especially our police and fire, and you went above and beyond. And to Councilman Finn's point, this is like a business decision, is to retain top-level employees. So a big thank you for continuing to put Peoria first and working hard and retaining top-level talent. So thank you.
Public Works Week, too. Perfect timing, huh? All right, do I have a motion on item 30R?
Move to approve. Second.
Lots of motions, lots of seconds. Please vote. And it passes unanimously. Thank you to all City of Peoria employees. We are truly grateful. All right, item 31R is budget amendment, public safety personnel retirement system. Mr. Tyne.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Over the last decade, there has been quite a bit of attention that has been given to the financial standing of the state's public safety personnel retirement system that are known as our pension fund for police and fire medical responders. Namely, there has been concern that we've talked about before. In the past, there were structural flaws and some underperforming investments for this statewide fund that result in the fund becoming significantly underfunded by actuarial considerations. So over the last couple of years, our city finance experts have worked closely with the City Council and also working closely with PSPRS to look at ways to reduce our unfunded liability and also position the city better for its forward-funded status. As you recall, in September 2021, Council did approve a lump sum payment to pay down on that city liability. Right now, we have another item for your consideration. We'll have Kevin Burke, our Chief Financial Officer, present a proposal as well. Thank you, Mr. Burke.
Thank you, City Manager Tyne. Great summary. I'll just break it down a little bit into more details and hopefully do that in a timely fashion here. So the agenda item in front of you is asking for your consideration of an additional lump sum payment to PSPRS for $5 million, half to police, half to fire. And as the manager pointed out, PSPRS is the pension system for police and fire. It's a mandatory system that the Peoria be involved in. It's not something that we voluntarily choose this pension plan over that pension plan. You get one spot and it's got to go to, and the city really has minimal control over it. It is a separate board that makes the investment decisions. We have some responsibilities on an individual basis, but really we have very little in the way of decision making. But one of those aspects is this idea of maintaining the pension plan at 100% funded status. So just to recap, because it's been a little bit of time since our September conversation and with Councilmember Schaefer to bring him up to speed, although I'm sure you saw that riveting video from a few months ago on this topic. But the pension plan for many years, from the mid-'80s to 2000, ran at 100% funding and then actually peaked in 2000 at 120% funding. From there on, the past 2 decades, we've seen some underperforming and resulting in some underfunding. That underperformance was in a number of ways. First of all, the high level of funding actually led to some benefits that were awarded that were not sustainable. We also had some bad investment decisions by the PSPRS board that turned into just that, poor returns. We had the dot-com bust, we had the Great Recession in there that were economic downturns that led to some underfunding. And then we also had some just problems with the actual plan, whether they were bad assumptions or structural challenges to that. So we went from 120% in 2000 down to 48% funded in 2020. Now you'll notice from 2015 to 2020, the line stabilized a little bit. That was due to a number of reforms, both at the ballot and then specific legislative changes that were made to really stabilize this. So, but we saw a change last year, and we saw a little bit of an uptick from 2020 to 2021. We went from 48% funded on an aggregate basis to 54.2%. And that was primarily driven to some very healthy returns on investment in the fiscal year 2021. In fact, it was 26.7% investment returns. Now that has been smoothed over the next several years, but even with that pro rata portion applied to it, we did see a change and an uptick in the funding status. Now, when you lay Peoria Police and Fire over the top of it, you can see very similar trend line all the way through, including that bump up in 2021, where we saw Police moved from 54% to 58%. Fire moved from 66% funded to the 71.5% that you see on your screen. So the rates of return certainly pushed that up, but that wasn't the only one. As Manager Tyne mentioned, Council committed to a lump sum payment of $30 million in the fall. We made 15 in October, 15 in December. And then Council also made a policy change that continues to pay the annual required contribution. In other words, the way that the plan was set up is that we needed to be 100% funded by the year 2036. And so PSPRS said, you must make this minimum required contribution each and every year to get there. When you make a $30 million contribution, it reduces the minimum amount that you have to make. But Council said, let's hold it steady since it's already in our budget. We're just going to hold it there and continue to move forward that payment each year. So that made a significant improvement to our funding scenario. And it took us from this graph, which shows getting to full funding by the year 2036 by making those orange contributions in addition to the normal contributions that you see on there, which run about $18 million a year. Over this period from 2020 to 2036, we would be making $270 million worth of contributions to get this plan fully funded and taking that. With the actions that you took this past fall, this moves us to this chart, which one, brings our fully funding status about 5 to 8 years faster. So it brings us to about 2029, 2031, and it saves approximately $60 to $85 million. So that's the history. Building on that, one of the things that progress towards full funding is reflected each year in what's known as the PSPRS Actuarial Valuation Report. And this is just a statement that shows where we're making that progress. Unfortunately, we don't see that until the fiscal year is closed. So that contribution that was made in October and December won't show up until this fiscal year is closed on June 30th, 2022, and then the report comes out in October. So it's a little bit farther away to see the fruits of the labor. But it positions us at this time of year, right before our fiscal year closes, that we can make the most significant impacts by making small adjustments, even such as a $5 million lump sum contribution, because it hits right as the year closes and it's immediately counted towards that funding status, and it makes a nice impact when we move forward. Further, we know that the market's having a rather rough year, and so this helps to keep us on track for that funding levels each and every year to get to that 100% funding in a more aggressive fashion. So once again, the proposal would be a motion to approve a budget amendment totaling $5 million from general fund contingency to the public safety retirement accounts within the respective funds. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments? Nope. Mr. Schaefer?
Thank you, Mayor. This is smart for the city of Peoria. By funding the pension of the police and fire in a shorter amount of time, like Mr. Burke said, we would be saving $60 to $70 million. That's significant, and we're giving our police and fire the pension they need. So therefore, I'm in favor of this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And I just want to reiterate, because we looked at that terrible graph for a really long time where it was such a steep slope downwards. I want to reiterate that the city of Peoria has no ability to control the investments in this fund, and no ability to choose a different fund, no management at all. And because of whatever happened to the board and the people who were managing that fund, we are, as well as all of the other cities who are in this fund, obligated. And we will make good on our obligations, as we always do. Anyone else? All right, then how about a motion? A motion and a second. Please vote. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is called to the public for non-agenda items, and I have received no requests to speak. So we will move on to reports from the city manager. Mr. Tyne?
Great, thank you, Mayor and Council. And so I'll go through a report, and then just as a reminder that we do have a special meeting regarding the adoption of the budget, which will.
Sure.
But we've heard the presentation on that. Wanted to mention just again, some important action items on tonight. So thank you, Council, for taking on some very meaty issues. And we also appreciate some of our partners, including Maricopa County Department of Transportation and State Land, and specifically want to call out State Land Director Lisa Atkins for her support as well in managing through very important strategic parcels to help us with that annexation process. So just wanted to express our thanks to her. I also now would like to kind of pivot and talk about something that we're very excited to report on, which is a little bit about neighborhoods. I'm going to ask our Neighborhood and Human Services Director, Chris Hallett, to stand up if he is here and walk down to the podium here with maybe some items in hand. He was recently at the Neighborhoods USA conference in Little Rock, Arkansas. For those that aren't aware, Neighborhoods USA organization is the nation's foremost nonprofit organization that is committed to building and strengthening neighborhood organizations. So on May 7th, at the conference in Little Rock, Neighborhood USA awarded the city of Peoria as the nation's best neighborhood program in 2 different categories, of which you'll hear about: physical revitalization category for our Code 101 program, and the best neighborhood program for social revitalization and neighborliness category for the Block Party program. Just to give some perspective, there's very finite amount of awards. There's 2 programs I believe in the United States, which we won on this specific category. It is an amazing, exciting achievement. I want to congratulate the entire NHS department for this honor, specifically standing with you here, Chris Hallett, Kelly Kincaid as well, Karen Imig, Lisa Maddox, Eric Hanna, Adam Johnson, and many others for all their efforts to make all of these programs connect with our residents and serve as a national best practice. If I may, Chris, put you on the spot, you actually have examples of this award. And any comments you have?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Tyne. Mayor and Council, we are very proud, as I'm sure you are. We have 2 first place. We're top 6 finalists in both categories. We had a contingent go out to Little Rock, Arkansas. It's a very competitive. We've done this a couple of years ago and also took first place for our Neighborhood Pride program, so we're a 3-time winner. But you have to compete. The staff went out and did terrific presentations. You had to do a 20-minute presentation. We sat through the whole day of presentations to learn who our competition was, how we were doing, and we felt very confident. The first one was first place for the Physical Revitalization Beautification for Best Neighborhood Program, which is also a 3-time program winner. I want to recognize and have them come down. Eric Hanna, Code Compliance Supervisor, and acknowledging the 3 code officers. Come on down. We have Code Compliance Officer Bob Koch, and the celebrity himself on the Code Talks, Gary Bethards, and Evan Greenwald. Come on down. If you remember, we came to council a couple of times on the same basic Code 101 and Code Talks winners from the American Association of Code Enforcement, 2-time winner 2020 and 2021 for innovative marketing and media. And that's exactly what we won on here again with the NUSA program. So I'd like to congratulate Eric and his team for a fine presentation and the first place award. Thank you. Congratulations. And similarly,
Congratulations.
yes.
I just want to reiterate, first in the nation. Nation.
I also want to say that, there's a lot of good programs out there, and there was another local municipality from the state of Arizona there who also had a code enforcement presentation that didn't place. So, just saying. But similarly, we had both categories, top 6 finalists. So we had Lisa Maddox and Adam Johnson present. They did a great job on our block party trailer that you're very familiar with. We mentioned earlier the pop-up band, which was kind of towing the trailer, which really helped, very visually enticing for what we do out in there. But they really, really loved that. It was mentioned at the awards presentation how excited the board member was about this, told everybody to get a hold of Peoria for both awards on these great programs. And I think the icing on the cake is when Adam was presenting their own innovative way to promote this going forward is to party like a block star. So we look forward for that coming down. So I do want to invite Lisa and Adam down for first place in the Best Neighborhood Program, Social Revitalization and Neighborliness.
All right. Congratulations. You make Peoria proud. We appreciate it. Thank you.
I have a comment.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I always like talking about neighborhoods, but congratulations to Eric Strunk, Chris Hallett, and the entire neighborhood team on this amazing accomplishment. To be recognized as the #1 organization in the entire country is truly remarkable. So I went to Google today and I found out in this country there are 19,459 incorporated cities. That means Peoria is better than 19,458 of them. And to think that every other organization in the country aspires to be like Peoria should make us all very proud. This recognition also speaks volumes about how we value our citizens in our attempt to make their everyday lives better. I applaud the entire team for this great honor. Congratulations to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you again. All right. Thank you. There being no further business, we will adjourn this meeting. And I will convene our special meeting. Welcome to the special meeting of the Peoria City Council. This meeting is now reconvened, and the clerk will please call the roll.
Mayor Carla,
Here.
Vice Mayor Patera,
Here.
Councilmember Finn,
Here.
Councilmember Dunn,
Here.
Councilmember Hutt,
Here.
Councilmember Schaefer,
Present.
and Councilmember Edwards.
Here.
Thank you. This is the final call to submit speaker request forms. If there is any member of the public who would care to submit a speaker request form, please fill it out and return it to the clerk. You will be called upon at the appropriate time. We have one item on our special agenda this evening, and it is item 33R, fiscal year 2023, final budget adoption. We'll turn it over to Mr. Tyne.
Great, thank you, Mayor and Council. And we did have a presentation on the budget. I appreciate Mr. Christensen providing that to you. This is a $783 million budget, and it is probably worth mentioning now the months and months that went into efforts with the city staff and then with the city council for hours and hours of various study sessions to go through all of the different operations as well as our capital improvement program as well, and then learning a lot more about the different aspects of it. It's a major policy and financial planning tool that is there, and with that, we are here to address any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's no presentation?
Correct.
Okay. All right, then are there any items of discussion from the members of the council? No?
I have one.
Okay.
Is it on the budget?
Yes, it's the budget.
So I would like to just make a comment. I want to take a moment to talk with our audience and our viewing public about our budget process and the budget we will be voting on today. This mayor and council has seen the budget presented to us at least 7 times. We even had a study session where we heard from every department what their needs were and if they were needed, if they needed any staff members. This council takes our budget process very seriously. We realize that we are dealing with our citizens' tax dollars, and I believe that we are good stewards of the tax dollars and make good financial decisions. During this process, we are always asked for our input, whether we have any additions, changes, deletions, whatever. Anything that concerns us, we are always asked. And so for the reasons below, I just mentioned, I will be voting in approval of this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Dunn?
So I will be voting against this budget, and the reason why is, there's several reasons, but one of the things, you know, we talk about funding in Peoria and how well Peoria is doing, how great the streets are. But I have to say, there's the difference in funding in the Pine District as opposed to the rest of the city. I mean, our streets are, in the Pine District, if you go up north, you'll see mill and overlay on brand new streets, pretty much. South, you'll see, slurry seal. The crime that I talked about earlier, it is real. And, you know, the Pine District is one of the most ignored district, and it has been because, again, you know, you have, as our attorney said earlier, a dissenting vote in me, and before that, you had Carlo Leone dissenting. So there is a difference in services. There's a difference in maintenance. Again, we pay a lot of taxes in the South. We have a lot of businesses. We're dense. We're, you know, I like our parks, but sworn FTEs, you know, in our police department, we do need to add to our force. If you look at the crime rates, I know in the South I get reports just on the Nextdoor app all the time. It's ridiculous the crime, how it has it has grown. And again, that is with growth in any city, but the South has been ignored, and I cannot in good conscience vote for this budget because of that. So thanks.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to address that. Councilmember Dunn, you were elected to this body to represent your district. If you feel your district is being neglected, speak up. We all do.
Mayor, I'd like to address that.
Councilmember Dunn?
I think I do speak up every council meeting, and I do fight very hard for my district. Again, Mr. Patena doesn't like what I'm saying. That's okay. But again, the South, and in particular the Pine District, has not and does not get the services that the other districts get. It does not get the money spent there in comparison to some of the other districts. And that's why I cannot continue to, I just can't go along with voting for a budget where it's unequitable.
Councilmember Hunt?
Well, I'm sure Councilwoman Dunn is only speaking for the southwest part of the city because I represent the southeast segment, the Acacia District, and I feel no slight. I think our public services, whether it's streets, whether it's traffic lights, police enforcement, tree trimming, you name it, whatever the city service is, my district is served just as well as any other district in the city. I have a lot of, as Pine District does, we both have a lot of older communities, and that's where we have Mr. Howlett's group come in and help repair those, help fix those up. That's why we have the neighborhood services that we do. I walked out, well, I actually walked into my living room this afternoon and there were 2 police cars on the corner kind of by my house, and I wondered what they thought I had done. One officer had a long gun, and my entire subdivision was surrounded by Peoria police cars. They didn't stop me, so I knew I wasn't guilty of anything. But I found out later that there had been someone with a gun in the adjacent subdivision that was being built. So we had like six police cars there. Now that doesn't happen very often, I'm happy to say, but crime is low all over this city, whether it's north, south, east, or west. We have a very low crime rate. And I can't quote the numbers, but we have them to show, and we have shown those numbers repeatedly. So the accusation that crime is high or rampant, especially in the southern part of the city, it's just not true. It may be a perception, but it is absolutely not supported by statistics. So when Councilwoman Dunn says South Peoria, please understand she's only representing her part of South Peoria. I feel that my part gets excellent service.
Thank you. Councilmember Dunn, did you press the button
Yeah,
again?
yeah, I'd like to address that,
Please.
So again, it's nice to be in the majority and to get your district the stuff it needs. I am a dissenter, and for good reason. Again, crime is up. I think the facts will show that. I think the murder rate last year, Andy, maybe you can tell us how much it went up this year.
Mayor and council, I don't have the exact numbers that for murders in the last year, but I do know that, and we're going to send a report out probably tomorrow that shows that crime rates for the first quarter in the Pine District were lower than the crime rates for the last year's first quarter when you compare the two quarters.
So I'd love to see that, but we also have some other statistics that I've been supplied with. And again, I think those will be published pretty soon. But you can get up here and say anything, including myself, but again, just drive in the Pine District and drive in every other district, and you'll see the difference.
All right, so I would like to make some comments on our budget, since it has been a tremendous amount of work, and there is a lot of just amazing things in this budget. For one thing, it is a fully balanced budget. Unlike the state or the federal government, in the city of Peoria, we balance our budget this year and every year. We do not spend beyond our means, and we adhere to the principles of sound financial management, and this budget is a perfect example of that sound financial management and how well it works for our city and our residents. This budget includes significant expansion to the North Precinct Police Facility. It includes, coupled with our CIP, our capital budget, it includes a fire station, the second phase of Paloma Community Park, and trail system improvements. There are public safety vehicles, more technology, more facilities, roadways, and parks. All of the things that our residents choose to live in a city to enjoy are in this budget. It is extremely important document, it's an extremely important tool for us to be able to manage a growing city. And when we talk about a growing city, we had many, many study sessions on the growth that is occurring and how we can be prepared for that growth as time goes on. And this budget is the tool to prepare and make those changes and look towards the vision of the future of the city of Peoria. That vision of the future of our city is our job up here. And that's what this budget accomplishes. And I want to highlight the infrastructure that is in this budget. Without the wastewater and what we call a purple pipe system, a system to help us reclaim our water, use each water drop more than once. Without those without that infrastructure, without us paying to put that infrastructure in, we will not be a city that can sustain itself into the future. We are in a drought, as you may have heard, time and time again, and so we have to be very judicious, not only with the infrastructure necessary to get us into the future, but also the cost of water as we buy water from Central Arizona Project and Salt River Project and drill wells, as we do all of the things necessary to supply our residents with the water that they need. We have to pay for those things. The costs are going up and up and up, and we must keep up with them, and our budget does that. So we have a balanced budget that accounts for the future, the growth, and the quality of life that our residents currently live with and are quite used to living with, and we want to make sure that that quality does not diminish as time goes on. So this budget accomplishes all of those things, and I'm very proud of it. It's a document that we must have in order to sustain our city. And so for that purpose, I am in favor of this budget and very, very pleased with what a quality document it is. And with that, I will entertain a motion to accept our budget.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and some seconds. Mr. Schaefer, did you want to speak?
No, we can move with the motion.
Okay. All right. Please vote. And the budget passes 6-1. Thank you. Thank you to our city staff, city management, everyone who contributed to the current budget and the upcoming budget and the capital improvement program budget. They are truly important to our city. Thank you. And there being no further business, We are adjourned.